Viewers and subscribers, welcome back to Beating the Press podcast. I am your host, Rafa. Now, coming up in today's podcast, we're going to review the two big matches which took place over the weekend. Man U running away 3-0 winners over West Ham. And of course, the big one that everyone is talking about, Arsenal getting the better of Liverpool. And joining me this evening to review these two matches, we have returning to the podcast, Christophe.
Good to be back, viewers.
Yes, indeed, Christophe. Another weekend of some exciting football action, and we're going to jump straight into it. Manchester United, Christophe, back-to-back victories now, getting the better of West Ham, 3-0 at home. And it was a toothless West Ham performance, Christophe. How did you see that one? Talk to us.
Um, it's always, I would say, well, in this fashion, it's impressive for Man U to have gotten this victory here today. West Ham's weakness, I think, was West Ham thought they could just go and beat Man United, and as such, they gave up a lot of space on the counter attack and got hit by Man U three times. Um, I think it might have been better. We've spoken on it before that Man U currently cannot beat you if they cannot play on the counter attack. West Ham does not seem to have realized that, or maybe it goes against their playing style, but they probably should have sat in a low block and then they themselves play on the counter because Man U will not break you down without a counter attack.
Yeah, definitely interesting observation there, Christoph. It was a toothless West Ham performance, in all honesty. They seem to be lacking that number nine, Christoph. Bowen is there. Kudos is now back from the African Cup of Nations. They did manage to create one or two opportunity. I can recall Bowen getting one where Darlow recovered and blocked that shot. And Suchek got a couple cracks at the goal, Onana pulling out a save here or there. But generally speaking, in terms of the run of the game, it was really Manchester United who created and had the better of chances. And I guess were a bit more clinical in front of goal. Garnacho coming up with two goals there and Highland, finding the opener. After a decent little, as you said, counter-attacking play in the first half. But surprising to see the margin of victory, to be honest with you. Result wise, I predicted Manchester United should have won and should have walked away with the 3 points. But in terms of the manner of the victory, that is what was a bit surprising to me. I thought the game would have been a bit closer and West Ham would have given a better account of themselves, but it was really not to be. But Christoph, has Manchester United turned the corner? I mean, we see now they have picked up back-to-back victories away to Wolves and now at home to West Ham. Are we now looking up in terms of Manchester United looking to climb the tables? They did leapfrog West Ham in the process in terms of getting this victory as well. They are now up to what, sixth, and West Ham are down to seventh. So can we look for Manchester United to push on from here, or the inconsistency will it continue?
It is a bit difficult to say at the moment. It could be that Ten Hag has simply abandoned trying to play, a specific style of play and just going with the counter attack since it does seem to work. I suspect maybe unless they finish the season with some form of silverware at the end of the season, I suspect regardless they might be replacing Ten Hag at the end of the season, and he himself might want to leave. But I don't know if Manu has turned the corner as yet. We would have to see a consistent run of games, and I mean we know they're going to play on the counter. We'll see. Will they continue with this? Will they see joy from this, winning 3, 4, 5 games in a row? Yeah, and then we could say, hey, it looks like they've turned the corner. But there is one glaring issue that still persists for Manu at the moment is that we don't know how Onana will perform on a day. So, people might decide, hey, Onana has butterfingers. Let's just, shoot from distance. And then, you just have a bad day at the office, despite how well the players in front of you might be playing. The defenders might be playing well, the midfielders are playing well, that holding midfield is playing well, but then, Onana can't save anything. So it's still a glaring issue for them. Um, but I guess the solution to it would be either drop Onana, which they're not going to do apparently, or you know, switch to a more possession-based style, which is not really for them because they can't break anybody down. So
I'm not really sure Onana is really the biggest issue though, Christoph. I mean, for me personally, my expectation of Manchester United is pretty much what we see now. This to me is the best of United. So that sort of expectation where you were expecting Ten Hag to come with this pretty football building from the back in the likes of Ajax of old, that expectation no longer persists for me personally. I realize that he just cannot get that style over to these set of players, or he has just gone away from that sort of philosophy with the type of English football which is being played. So I mean, it can't take you 2 full years and you're yet to still see a distinct replica somewhat of what we were seeing at Ajax. I mean,
I
that
mean,
in itself tells the story on its own.
that's what I'm saying. I don't know if he's just abandoned the approach and
Yeah,
decides
man,
to be
it seems like he've
pragmatic and
abandoned
play.
the approach. I mean, it can't take you 2 years to get your message across, Christoph. And what, four transfer windows where you had the opportunity to bring in your set of players, which many of them started in this game. So that one is a lost cause. Manchester United fans in general, I mean, you have to lower your expectation when it comes to that style of play. I mean, Manchester United fans seem to have settled on how the team is playing now, and they will take what they get. From time to time, a little bad run of results, then you may hear some noise. But on a whole, they seem content with the mediocrity, which is this Manchester United team, where they're pretty much out of contention in most of their competitions. I mean, the best they can hope for this season is really a top four finish. And it's hard to really see them at this point in time, Christoph, finishing in the top four with the likes of Aston Villa, Spurs, Arsenal, Liverpool, playing some quality football. I mean, it's hard to see this United team really finishing anywhere in the European spots. They may sneak in sixth, but
Oh, oh,
Champions League, I don't think so.
I mean, I never said I expected them to finish top four. I mean, I just think, the only way I see them, continuing with Ten Hag next season is probably if he picks up a trophy. All
Mm.
right. Not going to win the league unless there is some catastrophe at the top between City, Liverpool, and Arsenal, which, for the most part, is pretty unlikely. This point in the season, you're likely to see City go on 15-game winning streak or something like that. So, their best hopes are on whatever cup competitions they're still in. So unless they pick up a trophy, I don't see any reason for Man U to persist with Ten Hag next season. Personally, I think they should continue because I like to see Man U fail. But I've seen rumors floating around that Mourinho is being touted as a possible replacement at this time.
Yeah. I mean, Marina is now out of work, having been fired from Roma. So, anything is possible, to be honest with you. But uh, I'm not sure. I mean, it's still up in the air what Manchester United will do with Ten Hag. But for me, he has been a disappointment in terms of what my personal expectations were of a coach coming into Manchester United and having the sort of resume he had, which is what attracted Manchester United to him in the first place. That sort of sublime total football type of philosophy, which I thought he would have brought to Manchester United, that has been non-existent, and that has been the biggest disappointment for me. And accompanied with that is really the poor run of results and the fact that the team hasn't really excelled or taken the next step. So I believe going forward, they still will pick up a few results here or there just to maintain their top 10 finish. But in terms of challenging for a Champions League spot, in terms of finishing in the top four or even the top five, I think that is one step too much for this Ten Hag coach team. And I mean, West Ham should finish in the top 10 as well. They should pretty much be battling it out with United in terms of where they end the season, you know, 6th, 7th, 8th, somewhere thereabouts. They should pick up a few points between now and the end of season, but again, rather disappointing in terms of their performance, and they are definitely lacking a number than Christophe. Goals is what is missing from this West Ham team, and we saw again in this game Calvin Phillips, the signing from Manchester United, making a calamitous error again, leading directly to that goal from Garnacho. Christophe, what have you made of Calvin Phillips' performance thus far in the 2 games you have seen him in this West Ham team?
Um, Calvin Phillips before joining Man City was obviously a very good player because otherwise Pep Guardiola would not have thought to purchase him at the time.
But Pep
It,
purchased him and never played him. So,
because he immediately got injured. Very first game, he
well, I mean,
immediately
even
got
when he
injured.
came back from injury, Christoph, Pep did not use him. Pep rather play a defender like Stones in midfield
Right,
compared to
right,
Phillips. How would
right.
you
But
feel on the bench where you see a defender taking your spot as a
uh,
defensive midfielder?
and as a result, it could be that his confidence has eroded, and now we're seeing the result of that. So he might have been underperforming in training as a result of his poor confidence, and now that he's been loaned out, we can see it on the field. I don't know. Maybe he was always this poor and it's just
I
coming to
mean,
the
definitely
forefront.
on the back of these 2 performances, you can definitely see why Pep wasn't using him for sure. I mean, these 2 last performances are just proof why Pep had him on the bench, what, for 2, 3 years and
Right.
playing defenders in midfield instead.
Which is why I'm saying it could be that it could be that he's just this poor and he was tricking the crowd and he got a transfer. Or it could be that
Possibly.
his confidence has just been eroded to the point where, he's making these mistakes.
I personally feel he's a system baller, Christoph. You know, the lead system suited him in terms of his style of play. He was more of a talisman for, Leeds. Much of the offense ran through him. Know that and oftentimes what you find out as well, Christoph, is that good players look great in poor teams. So he may have been one of the good players in Leeds, but because the team around him was so poor, he stood out as that great player. Now that he's in a Manchester United with similar talent or slightly better talent than his, then pretty much his stock has really sunk to the bottom, and hence the reason why he was unable to break into that Manchester United team. And I mean,
Man
going to
City.
West Ham now, he has to hit the ground running. And thus far in these 2 games, his 2 performances have been rather disappointing. But I'm not going to draw any major conclusions as yet. Give him a few more games and see how he pans out. But thus far, 2 big errors losing the ball in midfield, which have led directly to goals versus West Ham. And, you know, definitely, I'm sure West Ham wasn't expecting this and was expecting a higher level of performance from this player. But such are these things. But we move, Christoph, and we move to the big game. That one shook up the league, so to speak. Arsenal, Christoph, running away 3-1 winners. Talk to us. You saw it. How did you see that one?
For me, I thought Liverpool just did not have that winning air about them. You come and you're watching a team and you see the players like, yes, this team is going to win, right? Or they're going to give you a very good performance. I did not see that from Liverpool on the day, right?
Yeah, it was definitely a flat performance from the jump, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely a flat performance, especially when you look at how Liverpool scored their one goal. It was a very a loose ball that rolled back into the back of the net.
Shambolic
Arsenal
defending, rather shambolic defending. I mean, on both defenses,
on both
you know,
defenses because Arsenal did score a similar goal to that,
similar,
but
almost a replica,
uh, basically
a
basically a
carbon
replica
copy.
of the goal. But Liverpool to me looks like I don't know if they were disinterested or if they felt that the result would just come or whatever, but they never looked like winning it to me. Even after getting back a goal and drawing level. The only time I would say they looked to be playing like they wanted to win was maybe just after the start of the second half. I don't know, Klopp had a team talk, probably rallied them, but then once Arsenal got that second goal, it was all downhill for them.
Yeah, definitely. It was a flat Liverpool performance, in all honesty, after, the demolition job that was done on Chelsea. Definitely expected a bit more intent from this Liverpool team. And, credit must be given to Arsenal. I mean, they came in this one, the hungrier team, to be honest with you. That's what I saw from the Arsenal team. They were a bit more hungry for this win. And I mean, you could see that by the extravagant celebrations from Arteta in particular. I mean, I saw when the second goal went in, that defensive mix up, and he was running down the sideline as if they scored a magnificent goal. So I guess it's just the emotion spilling over on the field, but definitely, Arsenal came with a bit more hunger, a bit more, want. And as a result, they definitely got the result which they deserve. Liverpool failed to really create too many clear-cut opportunities. And as a result, you could call it that they failed to score. Really, the goal they got on the score sheet was a gift from Arsenal. And likewise, it as if Van Dijk and Alisson returned the favor and say, here, here is a goal, take it. But once that second goal went in, to me, that was the game right there. And there was no recovery for Liverpool later on in the game. Again, Kanate getting a second yellow, leading to a red. And then Trossard killed it off late in that one, when Liverpool was pushing for an equalizer. So a deserved victory for Arsenal. Definitely set the cats amongst the pigeon in terms of the title race. And really, I mean, we've been saying it all along that it's really City's title to lose. And at the moment, Liverpool may occupy the number one spot, but really, I think they're just keeping it warm for Manchester City. What says you, though, Christoph?
Um, yeah, I do believe that, and I maintain that it's still City's title to lose. Um, City do have that game in hand, and
Yeah,
they're
and you
not.
could count that as 3 points. I mean, that game in
Yeah,
hand is against Brentford, and we saw the demolition job they did to Brentford today, running away 3-1 winners away from home over Brentford. So imagine the onslaught when Brentford, goes to the Etihad. I mean, so I count that as 3 points. So technically, in my head, in my book, City is leading the league by 1 point, Christoph.
that is our way of looking at it.
That's the way I'm
And
looking at it. To me, it is City titles to lose. And the fact that Liverpool went ahead and lost this game, as I mentioned in the previous show, if Liverpool had any sort of title credential, they needed a victory over Arsenal. They need to beat the teams around them. You can't be asking lesser teams to do your job. You have the opportunity to win. You have to go out there and get the 3 points. And the fact that, they came up with 0 points versus this Arsenal team is tantamount to pretty much almost handing over the title to City and say, here, City, it is yours to lose at this point in time. So, yeah, Klopp just got to go back to the drawing board and hopefully try to get a victory over Burnley, which is their next game at home, I believe. So,
well, at the moment, both Arsenal and Liverpool are at the mercy of the smaller teams. If they want to come and really catch back up to City, they do require that those smaller teams put in a shift for them,
but that is,
as
that
well
is
as
what I'm
them,
saying. You can't be depending on smaller teams to do your job.
as well as they themselves coming in and putting in a performance when they come up against City.
Yeah, I mean, but Christoph, what did you make of the Arsenal tactic? In the preview show, I did speak of it that Arteta may very well start Jorginho and that midfield three of Jorginho, Odegaard, and Rice. Do you think that is the way forward for Arsenal? I think personally, I think that midfield three brings the right balance to this Arsenal team, and I think they should persist with it going forward.
Um, I think it could work, but it is a case of what will Arteta ask these players to do? Because if I were to persist with this midfield, I would have both Jorginho and Declan Rice behind Odegaard, and Odegaard would stay in that number 10 role and not drop that deep into midfield for most games. For a
No,
game
no, I
against
think a better balance would be Odegaard and Rice playing like a box-to-box role and Jorginho really sitting and dictating from deep. To me, Rice is that sort of player which he has that defensive instinct, so to speak. So even though he goes forward, he will still give you that defensive tracking back because of that defensive instinct. And I think it meshes well with Odegaard, which is almost the opposite version. He has that attacking instinct, but will still, drop back and give you a bit of defensive work. And then, of course, Jorginho is there to really clog the middle, and stop any counter. So to me, I think, in this game, Arsenal found a good formula, a good template to go by, in especially as the midfield three, and Jesus being injured might have been a blessing in disguise, where Kai Havertz came in and pretty much added an extra body into that midfield. So pretty much you could say they won the midfield battle by the mere fact that you had four bodies among three.
Right, but that is what every team, well, not every team, but that is what Arsenal has been doing all season. Except in this game, instead of asking Zinchenko to come into midfield as he does, Zinchenko was told to, hey, stay as a left back, do not invert, and stay defensively solid. And instead, Kai Havertz dropped down and created that same box midfield in this case. It might be a good idea going forward. If and when Gabriel Jesus come back, you can still employ the same tactic.
As I
And
said, it's a good template to use, the trio in midfield. To me, I would love if I see it again in their next game, because I feel this is a winning combination which could work in the short to medium term. Potentially in the long term, you're going to probably need to find that number 8. But in the short to medium term for this season, I believe giving Jorginho a run in the team will do this team well.
I mean, yeah, I see no problem with him getting around because it's not like I mean, we saw the game before where Smith Rowe played that role, and he also did very well in that position. I actually thought he would have started ahead on the left side again, but Arteta chose to go with
Arteta
Jorginho.
doesn't trust him, to be honest, especially in such a high profile game. Hence why I suggested going with a more experienced head such as Jorginho, which I've seen many a number of high profile games, Euro finals, Euro winners, Champions League finalists, Champions League winner with Chelsea, that abundance of experience. He would have gone the more conservative manner, which I read him for that, and so said, so done. And it definitely worked in their favor, especially going ahead, which again I predicted. It has been an issue to me for Liverpool. Many are talking of Liverpool as having the meanest defense in the league, but I've seen it time and time again where they have conceded the first goal and have really been playing from behind and getting good results. Not to say they have been losing, but this sort of characteristics is going to catch up to you eventually. You can't be giving up the first goal and expect to play from behind and come back and win. And again, that was the case here. They gave up the first goal, gifted an equalizer, but again gave up another goal and again chasing the game. You're gonna leave gaps in behind you, and that is exactly how this one played out. So the tactic worked for Arsenal and Arteta, especially as I said, going ahead early, through that Saka strike. Again, a gift, you could say, again, lucky bounce or being in the right position after Alisson pulled out a good save from Kai. The rebound fell nicely to Saka, who pretty much,
I
slot it
mean,
into an empty net.
had Kai Havertz had a more striker's instinct, had been more clinical, it could have been a much greater difference in the scoreline. Had Arsenal been playing with a better striker. So it just goes to show you how poor Liverpool
Again,
defense was on the day.
yeah, I mean, definitely, it wasn't Liverpool's day, one of their poorer games to date, during the course of the season, in all honesty, that energy was just missing, was just lacking. And the big players you expect to step up, they were the ones making the big errors. And as I said, from that second goal went in, you could see the heads fall, and the confidence just drained from the team when your top players are making such ridiculous errors as professionals. Then what of the youngsters looking on? And really, they have to own the results and pretty much look to bounce back in the next game. They also have a cup final to look forward to in short order as well. So the games are coming thick and fast. And in this EPL, Christophe, your memory has to be very short. You have to have a very short memory because as soon as a game is won or lost, there's another game around the horizon that you have to prepare for. So you have to get this loss out of your system very quickly and just do your job. Pretty much that's what it boils down to. Do your job. I mean, whatever else will happen, will happen. Teams may win, teams may lose, teams may draw, but you have to do your job. And that's pretty much what it boils down to for this Liverpool team right now. Get the job done, possibly winning a cup may galvanize the team and push them on. So that is my hope that they bounce back with a victory over Burnley at home and then go on to beat Chelsea in that cup final. And hopefully that can galvanize and, give the team a bit more momentum. And we'll see what happens. But definitely a big loss. And the ball is right now in City's hand. And we saw the return of Haaland. City are pretty much firing on all cylinders right now. All their top players are now back. And this is just another example of the quality team which City is. So all to play for, really, for both Arsenal, City, and Liverpool.
Yep, no team can afford to really drop any points at the moment.
Well, I mean, yeah, the competition is pretty stiff at the top, which is good for the league overall, and it should go right down to the wire as far as I see. I don't believe any one team is gonna really jump ahead. And if one team was to do that, then my money would be on City, as you said, to go on something like a 15-game run where they just blow all the competition away. So luckily, they are still in some Champions League competition, which could distract them somewhat. But we know City, I mean, they won the treble last season. And it's possible that they can repeat the treble again this season, Christophe. Many persons are not talking about that possibility that City can, in fact, do a repeat of the treble. Do you see that happening?
It's too soon to say. I mean, obviously it is a possibility since they're still in the competitions, but I would say it's difficult to say at the moment. Anything is possible, but I don't know. How many teams have won back-to-back trebles?
But that is it, that they're chasing history. And history is something Pep loves to chase. So it would not surprise me one bit if they can pull off a back-to-back treble, defending the Champions League, defending the league, and also winning the FA Cup again, pretty much back-to-back treble. So, and they are currently in all competitions and all to play for, in all honesty.
I mean, for me at the moment, they are probably likely to win the FA Cup, and we said that the league is still theirs to lose at the moment. So the only issue for them is, will somebody challenge them in the Champions League?
But I don't see a challenger there currently.
You don't see any challenge there.
I don't see any challengers. There's no other team in Europe really setting the cats amongst the pigeon. I mean, City to me are the favorites for the Champions League as well. So technically, they are favorites in all three of the competition they're still in. And again, viewers and subscribers, it would not surprise me if they went on to do the treble. I mean, especially with Liverpool slipping up and Arsenal possibly not being as consistent as one would expect.
I mean, the problem for City in the Champions League is that Pep is his own worst enemy because he
He
does have
seemed
a
to have
tendency of
overcome that ghost, Christophe. That is what
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying.
right.
Last
But
season and
we
thus far
we
this season, he's
right.
really,
But it could be a double-edged sword where he says, all right, I won last season, so I will win again this season, and decides to go back to his experimenting. You never
oh,
know.
no, no, no. I believe that he has now unlocked the formula to win Champions League competitions, and he is just pretty much reproducing what he produced last season. And the players seem to be hungry still. He has this tendency of keeping his players hungry. 1 minute a player is on top farm, the next minute he's on the bench. And you as the player must be puzzled as to what more must I do in order to be selected for this 11. That's the sort of luxury that Pep has, where he can pretty much bench one of their top players who is on farm and leave that player wondering, what more can I do to be in the 11? Consistently keeping his players hungry. I mean, you look at a player like Grealish, can barely get a game in the City team. Doku, who was on fire earlier in the season, picked up an injury and now really is just coming off the bench. So abundance of quality, and Pep has a managerial style which seems to be working wonders, in terms of this set of players and their personalities, and pretty much keeping everybody hungry and also keeping everybody happy at the same time. So, it's a subtle balance. And at the same time, consistently winning trophies year in, year out.
Right.
He has to be regarded as one of the top managers of all time, Christoph.
Well, at the moment, I would regard him as the greatest manager of all time. At the moment, in the future,
Definitely. I mean,
somebody might come up and usurp him in the future. But at the moment, Pep Guardiola
yeah, I
is the
mean,
greatest
definitely.
manager of all
I
time.
would fully agree with that as well. I mean, just look at his resume and the fact that he has gone to several leagues and have dominated Spain, dominated Germany, and he has pretty much turned the English league into a German league where it's oftentimes a one-horse race. You pretty much can now close your eyes and pick that City is gonna win year after year after year, similar to Bayern in Germany. So kudos must be given, where it's due for sure. But Christoph, in terms of the other results this weekend, how did you see the rest of the league panning out?
I mean, we saw City running away. Was it 3-1 or 3-0 today?
3-1,
So
3-1 winners, 3-1.
3 it's 3-1. Okay, so we expected them to pick up those 3 points. Um, the rest of matches were kind of I didn't maybe Tottenham did surprise me drawing that much. I do think Tottenham would win. Brighton, I expected Brighton to win. Burnley, Fulham, I didn't really. I don't know. Normally, you expect the home team to win, but I wasn't expecting much. So a draw, I think, is a fair result there. Newcastle Luton did shock me. That was a shocking result.
Yeah, a four-goal shootout,
It was 4-all, 8 goals.
right? 8 goals, yes.
Yeah, that was a very shocking result. I was expecting. I mean, Newcastle is missing a number of players, and
Yeah, but I mean, for the most part, much of Newcastle defense is now back up and running and healthy. I mean, apart from the goalkeeper, who is Nick Pope, who has been out for the majority of the season, this Newcastle team is close to their best 11, with
right,
the exception of one or two players, in all honesty.
right. Which is why I'm a bit shocked as to them conceding 4 against Luton. I mean, it's a resurgent Luton team, but I mean,
Yeah, definitely. The four
bottom
goals is
bottom
shocking. I mean,
shocking.
Newcastle have set their hearts on defense. That has been their calling card. And this season, mm, definitely leaking a number of goals, I must say. And this was definitely a shocking result. But a positive one for Luton. I mean, I'm sure if you gave Luton a draw before the game kicked off, they would have taken it. So Luton is now out of the relegation zone as well, so
I
all to play for going forward,
I mean,
definitely.
Aston Villa versus Sheffield. The win Aston Villa winning, not a shock, but winning by 5 goals was was very impressive from them. Unai
Yeah,
Emery is
very
doing a
impressive
very
performance.
very
Very,
good job,
especially in the
and
first half.
Leon Bailey scoring again. It could be that
Yeah,
he
has
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 found
has
his
really he has really stepped up this season, I must say, with greater level of consistency and production. So flowers to Bailey for his continued production over the course of the season, definitely. And I'm hearing that a verbal agreement has been reached to pretty much renew his contract with Aston Villa. So Aston Villa looking to tie him down long term, and he seemed to be willing to sign on to this Emery-led project. Of course, there might be some sort of release clause embedded in that contract as well if any of the big boys really come knocking.
I don't think he's quite at that level as yet. Um, I
Yes,
mean,
man. I mean,
all credit to Leon Bailey. All credit to Leon Bailey. He still has to put in the work and get things done. But I think the credit has to go to Unai Emery
but I
for
mean,
what
if you
he
check
is
his
doing there
statistical
at Aston
comparison, though,
Villa.
Christoph, Bailey is producing more better than Martinelli or even Saka. the players who are actually getting the so-called big media hype. When you check
Right,
the
but
numbers, he's
also
above those players.
right. But you have to look at the fact that Aston Villa, you would say, is overperforming, and Arsenal
Well,
is
I'm not sure if they're overperforming. I mean, with the
you
level
know
of consistency,
no
I
no no
believe
no
that
no.
this is the
So
real deal, Christoph.
when you look at what is their what was their XG at the beginning of the season? What were people expecting as the XG? Nobody
Well,
was
I mean,
expecting
if
Villa
you're
to be
listening
top
to
four.
Sir Alex, I was seeing a quotation recently that being asked on the first day of this new season, Sir
Mhm.
Alex was asked which team impressed him. And even though Aston Villa lost 5-0 to Newcastle, his pick
Mhm.
was Aston Villa. So I mean the fact that Aston Villa now is sitting in the top four is just testament to his keen eyes of observation. And he could have seen this Aston Villa team from the first game, even though they lost 5-0. So I
Right.
mean, by now, after 22 games, and they're still punching in the top four, Christoph. This is no fluke. I think this is the real deal Aston Villa team. And it would not surprise me at this moment in time if they finish in the top four.
Well, perhaps Man United might need to take a look at Unai as their next manager.
Possibly, Christoph, but that's all the time we have, viewers and subscribers. Thanks again, Christoph, for coming on board and sharing your thoughts and your opinions. It's been a pleasure having you on the program. Viewers and subscribers, thanks again for tuning in, and please remember to share, like, and of course, subscribe. But until next time, this is Rafa signing off.